Hello, everyone. This is T. Baloo. This voice preview is going to be about River 3, the current. This is going to be Book 3, or Volume 3, from the River books, Blood Brother Chronicles. And a little bit of, before I start, I'll give you a little bit tidbit, in case that, if you haven't read the books, this preview is going to be in between Coco and Serenity. A little bit about Coco. Coco is a mystical immortal. Now, The River is very much a supernatural. It's a book based in the 1920s, Jim Crow in the Deep South. It's heavy in Southern folklore that's been passed along through my family. But it deals with folklore and mysticism and supernatural, and it spans not only in the Deep South, but going in New York, Boston, and crossing over into Europe. It spans a whole. I'm hoping that the volumes span all over the whole entire world, because I want the boys, Benjamin and Slick. I want them everywhere because they have this ferocity. It's just like. I want them everywhere. Coco is a mystic, and she's an immortal. She's lived over, I think now, 400 years. And before you listen to this, I usually have a preview that I tweet out that I tweet out periodically. It's called Sensual Partnerships. This was the first time that Coco actually met the boys, Benjamin and Slick. I highly recommend that you read that. It is really good old-fashioned erotica. But it's a situation whereas you really begin to understand who she is. I mean, she uses sex as a tool. She's incredibly intelligent. Being an immortal, you would have to be. You live so damn long. Every show I've ever watched, every book I've ever read concerning immortals, it's rare to come across one that's dumb or one that is not intelligent. She's incredibly intelligent. She is the leader of what's called the Freedom Fighters. Freedom Fighters they are a group of supernaturals. Some are skin shifters. Some are immortals like Coco and her brother. Others, they have control of the wind. They have control over different forces, and they all have supernatural powers. So think of it like the X-Men, but just set in 1925. Basically, I love it. It's cool. But she's taken the boys under her wing. The boys are Slick and Benjamin, the two assassins, two Southern good old boy assassins that the books actually revolve around. And she's introduced them to their own innate powers. Both boys are now in book 3. In book 2, both boys could then turn into skin shifters, which means that they could change into any person that they wanted to. So if you haven't read book 2, I do highly recommend that you read it so you get a really good idea of who Coco is, as well as all the other cast of characters. Now, Serenity. Serenity it's a very complicated character, like Coco. She is the child of Miss Edmonds. Now, in Book 2, Miss Edmonds is a former slave. She owns a wonderful soul food restaurant in Louisiana that the boys actually ate at in Book 2. She ended up giving them tons and tons of information about her infamous daughter. And from there, I also did a preview about that called Mrs. Edmonds' Moxie. So look out for that too. I tweet it periodically on my Twitter page. Black Ink Scribe, go there, look through the tweets, you'll see it. I'm tweeting about it constantly. But she is the child of this former slave as well as a plantation owner who just so happened to have raped Miss Edmonds when she was a young girl. I'm not going to give too much away, but Serenity was raised to be very malicious. Needless to say, Coco and Serenity got their revenge. But you're going to have to go to book 2 and really see how they did it. It was just really out there. But that was based on folklore that's in and around the Deep South of how slaves sometimes took revenge on their slave owners if those slave owners were particularly really cruel. Something that most history books don't talk about, but most of us Native and Black people, we know of these stories. They've been passed along in our family for ages, just by word of mouth. But Serenity is so she's a multi-ethnic woman. She's very, very beautiful. She has 4 sons. Now, her sons were between the union of white Frenchmen as well as herself. A lot of people don't. Black people are going to understand this. Her sons passed for white in the Deep South, and but they're also incredibly bloodthirsty. So they're even more malicious than their mother. But in this episode, Coco and Serenity. Now, mind you, Serenity has been dealing Coco for over 2 weeks. Now, Coco is now on a ship. She's headed to England, to the UK, and Serenity has been following her, definitely. And Coco is very much like, why are you following me? What the hell do you want? So Serenity finally sits down. Coco's sitting down. In the night, she's in one of the straw shays. She's looking out to the ocean. They're on a luxury liner. They're headed to England. They finally confront each other. Their exchange is really curious. So I want you to hear what they have to say. So this is, I'm going to call this preview The Comfort of Friends and Enemy. The Comfort of Enemy. The Comfort of Enemies. Exactly. So I'm going to call it, when I do put it out in writing, this preview is going to be called The Comfort of Enemies. So here we go. Having not been on a steamer since travel was made much simpler, Coco leans back in one of the straw shays on the upper deck, watching Jerry play shuffleboard with her bodyguard, Alexander Buford. Watching the two have wonderful fun, the mystical dame tries her best to look past snide remarks and acidic passing stares. Blacks not allowed in the upper deck. At least that was a policy until the captain realized that his biggest and best room, the Aladdin Suite, was inhabited by none other than a dark-skinned mystic and her entourage. After trying to force Coco from the room, saying that it was against the law of the land for a black woman to travel so close to whites, Coco reminded the seafaring former races that they were over 100 miles out at sea. In international waters, America's Jim Crow could kick rocks, and the diva told the captain as of such. When the gray-bearded conservative continued, all the lush mystic had to do was look to one of her bodyguards. The argument was over. There's only so far any man can run on a ship in the middle of the Atlantic. Coco and racism are like strange bedfellows, sometimes at each other's throats, sometimes understanding, but wealth has its privileges. And that privilege usually means a lot more than society's need to ignorantly segregate anything that looks or sounds different. The mystic saw the captain in the lower deck that night in the grand dining room. Coco was in fine form, wearing a custom form-fitting gown of red and black and silk. The sexy African vixen seemed to seduce just about everyone, even those that scoffed with disapproval. Whether it was the 35 carat sitting on her plush velvety black bosom or her radiant smile, before the night was old and regretful, the salacious vixen had a team of laughing men at her table, enjoying the best in booze and conversation. From as far as Scandinavia, Coco's table seemed to be an honorary United Nations of handsome men, each seduced with her stories of world travel, seduction, and money. That night, maybe out of spite, or just to prove a point, Coco betted the captain. Now the distinguished older man, with his robust body and swarthy bed manners, he's smitten. 24 red roses arrived again this morning. The captain's hoping for another sensual encore. Coco instead gave the roses to a few ladies at morning breakfast, making more friends, learning of everyone's destinations and costs for travel. Over mimosas and giggles and scrambled eggs, the black mystic fit right in, especially since the women were from Europe, instead of stodgy, segregationalist America. As the conversations went on into brunch, a fine culinary affair of every pastry and delectable delight ever known, Coco started to notice that a woman was following her. Not one to beat around the bush, the magical diva soon learned the woman's name. Serenity Doris Fertier Weiss, owner of the world-famous Accueil de Fleurs bed and breakfast spa. As the two struck up a conversation last night over champagne and dazzled eyes, most of which were coming from Fertier, Coco was sure as hell the woman was a lesbian, though she had her doubts. Speaking with another acquaintance met on the ship, Coco soon learned more about the dark-haired beauty, especially her penchant for bad men with even worse habits in the bedroom. When mentioned to Jerry, who is now trying to arm wrestle Alexander as others cheer on, Coco's brother spoke of what he found out as well. It seems Coco and Fertier's are number one shy of being well within the 7 degrees of separation, especially concerning two handsome, sexy killers from South Carolina. Jerry also explained that the mysterious diva gave the men a huge buffalo skin map, a relic Coco has been searching for over 50 years. If I had known you had that buffalo map, I would have come and stayed at your business. Spent a few nights researching, Coco says, turning to her right. Serenity smiles as she sits. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't startle you. The skin, the hide, it's not available to all of my guests. Just to those that are handsome, Coco smirks with. Good old boy killers with hearts of gold and fuck like demons. Serenity is not amused, looking away with a rather harsh smirk. I like the boys. They're honest, unlike most men, pretending to be gentlemen when they're really wolves. Coco smiles over, thinking about Slick in that instance. How is Slick in then? I assume that is why you followed me all the way from Louisiana. Saw you in New York. Wasn't there that long. Saw your damn face everywhere. Glaring at the beauty, the mystic diva means business. What business do you have with me? Serenity sits back, peering into the dark night sky, hearing the ocean crash far below against the ship's hull. I know what you did for the boys. You introduced them to magic. And you introduced them to the buffalo hide. Very opportunistic, if you ask me, Coco snipes. I didn't ask you, Serenity looks over with, already tired of the conversation. Rising in her seat, Coco is also growing impatient. As a gentle sea breeze blows in between them both, the women kind of square off, though in the fashion of southern belles, sprinkled insults made sweet by empty compliments. You know I was going to have them rise to the occasion. Both are foretold in fables long spoken of by the native people in North America. Serenity glares over. It wasn't called North America when those legends were first spoken. But yes, you're absolutely right. I saw an opportunity. The power you brought out of them will serve my purposes fine indeed. Coco glares over to her unwanted guests. And what would that be? Unleashing true power into the world, darling. Raising the old gods, getting rid of the new. Serenity smiles. Coco eases back in her chaise. I was under the impression you had something up your well-starched sleeves much more ambitious than that, ma'am. Serenity stares over. I do. You don't need to know that. Plain and simple. Coco is angered by the curt remark. Rising up in her seat, the black beauty looks Serenity right in her cold eyes. Oh, but I do know. Once they get rid of Rockefeller. Oh, yes. That greedy bastard. Yes, he does need to go, Serenity quips. Coco scoffs. That goes without saying. Accepting a glass of champagne, the black beauty glares over to Serenity, wondering what the woman's motives actually are. Powerful and skilled at cloaking her mind, most immortals would have had a field day with the witch. But Serenity is not an ordinary enchantress. So you gave the boys the hide. Why? Serenity sips on her flute of bubbly, careful of what she says. The boys are demigods. As much as I would like to, I'm only a witch. There are powers that they are about to unearth that would have me for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, ma'am. And I'm not Too prideful to say so. First wise thing you've done tonight, telling the truth. Coco looks over with a sneer. Second unwise thing you have done, and this was a mistake you have continued to make, following me from the goddamn South. How dare you? Yes, how dare I? Serenity laughs, one that rings hollow and sarcastic. Look, I know you're an immortal. 300 years old, I believe. I also know you're headed to England. You're going to meet with an old associate of Rockefeller. My only hope is that you do not believe anything that bastard tells you. The Rothschilds have gotten to him. The revelation leaves Coco stunned, so much so she nearly drops her champagne flute. Steadying her back, knowing she's in front of one of the most cunning women in the world, Coco simply smiles. You've done your homework. But so have I. I know about your murdering sons, your legacy for taking life, what you did for your mother. It's all common knowledge. I also know that map you gave the boys cannot be worked by normal human beings, not even you. You're using them to find the location of the spirit totems. And my question is this, and it is a big one. Why? Serenity glares back from Coco's wise, piercing eyes. Since you knew all of this, finding out the rest will be a mix of peaches and flour, she giggles. Do let me know when you finish the pie, darling. I would love a slice. The comeback leaves Coco's feeling stinging a bit. Time to bite back. Look here, you sardonic, manipulative bitch. You're putting my boys in danger. You have not even given them the whole goddamn story, and you know it. Serenity smiles at the insult, feeling the stinging words wash down her soul like water on a duck's back. Those boys. Oh my, they've really gotten to you. These men, as you should have said, can handle themselves very fine indeed. You need not worry. Seems to me you're the one with the problem. Coco sits back as she eyes the dark sky, feeling a small tinge of foolishness. The black beauty hates to admit to herself, but she has always underestimated Ben and Slick. When they first started their journey, not knowing where they were going to end up, Coco had the boys tailed in several states. She was getting heads up on just about everything they did. When the mystical diva finally learned that they were hot on the trail of Rockefeller, as well as a few very bad policemen that wanted their heads, the magical femme fatale made sure she sent her most talented shapeshifters, all to no avail. The men had already discovered that they could shapeshift themselves into just about anybody they wanted to, unheard of for most novices. Coco has since called off her watchdogs, especially since Slick almost killed one of them. The blonde hunk had figured out his brother and he were being followed, and he cornered the spy. The spiritual den mother was sent back one of her finest shapeshifters with a black eye, a fat lip, and a bruised ego. Though she's kept her distance, Coco is very proud of her protégés. But she does keep taps on the blood brothers from going on from then and there. But this time through contacts in other states, people on her payroll, ordinary citizens vying for extra cash for small tidbits of information. Coco tries her best to hide the fact that she's underestimated the boys, but Serenity can see right through to her feminine heart, seeing love and admiration for both brothers. You've fallen for those scoundrels, haven't you? Coco glares over. That's none of your fucking business. Scooting over right as Coco scoffs, rising up off her shay, Serenity laughs. I'm not going to bite you. I just want to compare notes. Whatever do you mean? A real Southern belle never kisses and tails. Coco sneers, wrapping herself up with her shawl. Okay, I understand. And about my contacts, what do you know about him? I know he's a good-for-nothing snitch that would turn on his mother if he thought it could add money to his pockets, and I also know he's in bed with the Rothschilds, Serenity quips. Coco looks over from the dark rolling sea that passes by. I'm in bed with the Rothschilds. I've known them for a very long time. I know the beauty continues. She then decides to keep quiet. Serenity looks up into a face that is deeply intelligent and secretive, ages of whispers and legends made wise and sullen. Watching as Coco looks away from her steadied gaze, she knows the woman has many secrets, centuries of tales and legends from a life many will never understand. Arriving close to Coco, Serenity feels a certain pity for the immortal. Maya, did you know him? I mean, you had to have been at least 200 years when his family started their business with the German royals. Coco leers to her side, rolling her eyes at Serenity as she coldly shifts her shoulder from the woman's gentle touch. I did know him. My father's wealth had made a nice nest egg for my brother and I. We left New Amsterdam for a bit. It was so damn gritty back in the day. Serenity laughs. Nothing like it is now. New York is fabulous indeed, she chuckles. You traveled by boat? How did you manage that? They were bringing slaves over from the dark country. You could have been kidnapped and taken to the south. Coco smiles gently over at Serenity. She sees and feels the woman's genuine sincerity. My brother was kidnapped, taken to Brazil. We spent a good century and a half there, in and around. We had good times. Serenity gently gasps as she looks into the dark waters of the sea, imagining long past time. Clothes, food, smiling faces that have long faded into antiquity. My God, woman, what life have you led? Coco smiles, scooting close to her guests, now appreciated. We have, my brother and I, but as far as Mayor Rothschild's, he was a good sort. This was in the 1700s. I was ancient even then. I remember taking on the skin of a fringe white woman, going to a dinner party. Curious thing, we talked the whole night, surrounded by luxury. He spoke to me as if I was the only woman in the room. Was he a gentleman? Serenity asks. Yes, very much so. Delightful. Even then he was fabulously wealthy. Humble. But he still had this air of distinction about him. It was very sexy indeed. Serenity grins. Oh my goddess. You fucked him, didn't you? Coco laughs as a cool breeze blows across her soft skin. All night, honey. He was gentle and loving, but I did so in my natural skin, she turns with. Serenity gasps as she grins into the refreshing air of the night. By George, woman, you made love to one of the most influential men of all time as a black woman? Correction, hun, as an African woman. I don't understand all this black business since being in America. We're not black. Did you do business with him? Serenity asks with a twinkle in her eye. Coco grins. Can we get back to the sex, please? One topic at a time. When I trust you more, then we can talk about my wealth. Serenity giggles, bowing like a gentleman from long ago. Both women laugh into the night, glad for each other's company in that moment. As the joy of camaraderie dies down into timid sighs and questions, Coco looks to the beautiful multi-ethnic woman next to her. She sees a person very much like herself, a woman willing to take the world by the cock and balls, riding as she finds pleasure in all of creation, delighting herself as well as those that adore her. You do have a very bad reputation, not to mention your brood, Coco gently sighs. Serenity looks away, instantly reminded of what has had to be done. I'm a colored woman in the part of the world whereas I'm only a step above an oxen cart. A thing meant to be used, a vessel meant to give some man a boy child. A child, mind you, that will eventually take all my money and dignity, doing the same to some other poor woman. My reputation is bad because that is what has suited me. Bad men, hell, men period. They think twice about trying to get the upends of a woman who they feel will slit their throats in their sleep. So yes, my reputation has been drawn through the mud, racked over hot coals, and blackened. But it keeps me safe and rich. Coco understands the explanation, nodding in agreement. And your son? Do you fuck him? Serenity is quickly taken aback at the horrid rumor, one that was started some years back by a suitor that couldn't get the best of the multi-ethnic beauty. No, my son is autistic. We have a very close relationship, but that is because he barely can think on his own. He's a man-child, and he will always be my little boy, no matter how big his body gets. Coco suddenly feels awkward at the question. She actually believed the rumor when she first heard it last year. Do they kill for you, your sons? Do they do your blood bitten? Serenity looks over at the question, peering into deep brown eyes that would never judge her. Yes, they do. I only have to say a name. I'm a colored woman in a white man's world. My sons pass for white, but their hearts are like black men, strong and beautiful, and they will do anything their mama tells them. Coco glances over at the blunt honesty. She deeply appreciates it. Thank you, she hums. Serenity smiles softly. For what? For not lying to me? And as far as the Rothschilds, several are immortals like myself. I know them very well. It pays to mingle with your own kind. Serenity looks over with another question, one she's been meaning to ask Coco since tailing her in Louisiana. How did you live through the centuries with human beings, without them burning you at the stake, trying to hurt you, without them noticing? Coco scoffs as she bundles up in her fine shawl. The air has gotten chilly. You assume too much. There have been many times we barely got by the skin of our teeth. Brazil, San Salvador, then Valdes Hamacas, Ecuador, hell, all over South America. We had to move just about every 40 years. In Europe, maybe around about every 60 years. But I'm a skin shifter, honey. If I really liked a city, all I would need to do is shift before I walked out my door. Serenity smiles at the explanation. Makes sense. Where have you stayed the longest? Coco grins. That's easy, love. Louisiana. And going on 175 years. People just assume that the whole city is mystical. Of course I don't age, and they assume it's because of New Orleans. It's as if the city compliments my gifts, darling. She understands me like none other. As the women talk into the night, Jerry and Alexander have stopped their nightly session of shuffleboard and hearty shoves and horseplay. Both peer over to the women suspiciously. I don't trust her. Alexander snipes, settling with a glass of beer. Jerry laughs as he sits as well. Miguel, not everybody is a demon. She is, that goddamn Serenity, the Celestial quips, gulping down a swig of brew. I know her whole story. I see it, line by damn line, her whole goddamn life. Jerry quickly looks over with worry. And spill it, man, tell me. With that, the Celestial looks deeply into its ward's eyes, telepathically passing on horrid images of betrayal and murder. As nameless victims cross his mind like moving images of the macabre and sadistic. Jerry jumps out of his seat. God damn it! That broad is dangerous as hell, he gasped. Alexander laughs. I've seen worse from our Coco. That doesn't concern me. She'll be dealt with in the afterlife. What concerns me is her cunning, what she wants from Coco. Jerry peers nervously from his sister. And what is that? The buffalo map, man. The Blood Brothers have it. She wants it, the Celestial says, staring off into the ages. Then Mikhail looks off into time, seeing passing images like movie strips, understanding the present and past and future. Wait, okay, hear me out, okay? She wants them to discover something for her. The brothers, then she'll claim it back. Hold on, I'm getting something else, okay? Yes, it's more power, deadly power, he says, staring back into his ward's eyes. As Jerry's eyes dart over to his sister, the young immortal rises, right before his angelic guide grabs his arm. No, you let Coco deal with that there. They're going to be great for each other. your sister knows exactly what's going on.